Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in today to the Climate Leadership Awards 2021 webinar. We're going to get started in a few minutes as folks trickle in. Please note that you can ask questions at any time in the questions box of the control panel. See you back here in a few minutes. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the Climate Leadership Awards 2021 webinar. My name is Jessica Leung, and I'm a Solutions Fellow with the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, or C2ES. And today I'll be moderating our conversation with Alex Carr, Director of Special Projects from the Climate Registry, or TCR. Next slide, please. Our special guest today is going to be Leigh Johnston, who is the Director of Sustainable Food Strategy at Tyson Foods. She's going to be speaking about her award experience from 2020 and the value of being recognized by our awards program. After we have a discussion, we are going to have a question and answer session. So at any time, please feel free to drop your questions into the chat box. And we will only have time for a few questions at the end of the discussion, but we can also follow up. We are recording this webinar, and if you register through GoToWebinar, you will get an email with a link to it afterwards. Otherwise, you can find it on C2ES's YouTube page at youtube.com/user/C2ES. And for more updates on what's happening with the Climate Leadership Awards and the Climate Leadership Conference, you can follow us on Twitter at the CLC 2021. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Alex Carr. Take it away, Alex.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Jessica. It's great to be here with you all today. So to get things started with a little history, we launched the Climate Leadership Awards on behalf of US EPA back in 2012 to continue the legacy of their Climate Leaders Program, which some of you might remember recognized companies between 2002 and 2011 for setting and achieving greenhouse gas reduction goals. EPA left as a headline sponsor in 2017, but TCR and C2ES, who are two of the founding partners of the program, have continued to administer the awards every year since then. And in the last few years, Bloomberg Philanthropies has stepped in as headline sponsor. And we've been really fortunate to receive a lot of support and interest from corporate and government leaders from across the US. In fact, it's been amazing to see the momentum for climate action and ambition continue to build. And over the past decade, we've awarded over 180 companies, organizations, and individuals from diverse sectors across the country. And we're really looking forward to celebrating the 10th anniversary of the awards in 2021, whether in person in New Orleans, virtually, or a combination of both. Next slide, please. So now just moving on to an overview of the 6 award categories. I'll give you a quick summary of each so you can assess whether it's the right fit for you and your organization. There are a couple of new subcategories and some updated criteria, which I'll flag for you as we go through. So starting with the Organizational Leadership Award, this category recognizes organizations that not only have their own comprehensive greenhouse gas inventories and aggressive greenhouse gas reduction goals, but they also exemplify extraordinary leadership in their internal response to climate change, as well as how they're engaging with their peers, their partners, and supply chain. So they're taking a real 360-degree approach to addressing climate change. New for this year is that there's now a large and mid-sized category for this award, so 2 subcategories, which reflects our goal to be more inclusive and also encourage as many organizations as possible to ratchet up their climate action and ambition. So a large organization is defined as a legally recognized corporate organization with annual revenue over 100 million, or a governmental entity or academic organization with annual budget over 100 million. A mid-sized organization is defined as a legally recognized corporate organization with annual revenue over 10 million and at least 100 employees, or a governmental entity or academic organization with annual budget over 10 million and at least 100 employees. And past winners in this category have included a tremendously diverse range of leaders from across the country, including Mars, Citigroup, and Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And you can find all of our previous winners on the Climate Leadership Conference website. Moving to the Individual Leadership Award category. So this recognizes individuals who exemplify extraordinary leadership in defining their organization's response to climate change and in how they engage their peers and partners. And past winners in this category have included some of the most influential climate leaders in the US, including Nancy Sutley, the CSO of the LA Department of Water and Power, Jerry Anderson, the CEO of DTE Energy, and Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia from the California State Assembly. The Supply Chain Leadership Award recognizes organizations that have their own comprehensive greenhouse gas inventories and reduction goals pertaining to their own operations, but also demonstrate that they're at the leading edge of managing emissions in their supply chains. And past winners in this category have included Cisco Systems, Clif Bar, and Sprint. So moving into the greenhouse gas categories, there are 2. The first is the Excellence in Greenhouse Gas Management Goal Setting Certificate. So this recognizes organizations that publicly report and verify organization-wide greenhouse gas inventories and publicly set aggressive reduction goals. There are some new criteria associated with this award, reflecting the need for greater ambition over the next decade. And Jessica is going to give you more information on this in a minute. Past winners in this category include Ford, CK Technology, and Biogen. So the next Greenhouse Gas Award is the Excellence in Greenhouse Gas Management Goal Achievement Award. Not surprisingly, this mirrors the criteria in the previous category, with the difference being that eligible organizations have also achieved aggressive emissions reduction goals. And past winners include SC Johnson, Jacobs, and IBM. Last but not least, we've got the Innovative Partnership Certificate, which is where we've seen a lot of creativity, given it recognizes organizations working together on leading edge climate initiatives. So eligible partnerships in this category have established objectives to measurably address greenhouse gas reduction goals and/or adaptation and resilience activities. And past winners include Tyson Foods, Honda, and the Utah Climate Action Network. So those are the categories at a high level. Hope that was a useful overview. Do check out the awards page on the Climate Leadership Conference. That's a good reference for you if you'd like more information, or of course you can always reach out to us if you have any questions. And with that, I'll hand it back to Jessica.
Thanks, Alex. All right, so as she mentioned, we have this year some adjustments with the GHG reduction goals. So the new GHG reduction goals must now represent an aggressive reduction to be recognized for the goal setting certificate. The aggressive reductions must be in line with the Science-Based Targets Initiative, or as many of you know it as SBTI. It must be aligned with their minimum thresholds for achieving a 2-degree Celsius trajectory, which is defined as follows. An organization's first goal must commit to at least a 2.5% reduction per year over the life of the goal. So now, while organizations are required to have goals that align with the SBTI's ambition for a well below 2 degrees C scenario, which is the 2.5% linear reduction, We are encouraging applicants to align themselves with the SBTI threshold associated with the 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature goal, which would be 4.2% linear annual reduction. And then applicants must now also conduct a Scope 3 screening in line with the GHG Protocol Corporate Value Chain Accounting and Reporting Standards, and use the criteria for relevance to assess whether their Scope 3 emissions are relevant. So if your organization's Scope 3 emissions are over 40%, that was 40, if they're over 40% of total entity-wide emissions, then the applicants should measure and report those emissions and include at least a third of relevant Scope 3 categories in their GHG reduction goal or justify their exclusion. Applicants can also provide information on plans for addressing those relevant Scope 3 emission categories in the future. And some other small changes that we're making is that applicants should demonstrate some efforts towards resilience. So we've included some questions about that, and also about decarbonization and purchase of renewable energy. Next slide, please. So you can download the application from the climateleadershipconference.org website. The link is right there, but it's also very easy to find. There is a very lengthy and comprehensive awards FAQ where you can find a lot of answers to your questions, but we also know that each organization is different and we want to be as precise as possible with our guidance. So please feel free to shoot an email to questions@climateleadershipawards.org. One of us, myself included, will respond to you within just the several business days. And again, because everybody's situation is unique, we'll work with you to develop an answer that works for whatever award category you might be applying for. And actually, quickly going back to the awards FAQ, one thing we get asked a lot is whether an organization can apply for more than one category. And you can, but you have to complete separate applications. So the award deadline this year is Friday, December 4th at midnight Pacific. And the link for the actual application is on our website, and you can see it there as well. So you have a couple of months to download the applications. They are different for each category. Send us your questions and get them in on time. And next slide, please. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Leanne, who's going to talk about Tyson's project, which won Innovative Partnership in 2020. Take it away, Leanne.
Great. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you for organizing the webinar today. Really a great opportunity to be with you. And since it is the lunchtime hour for many of us, we're going to start with a very tasty looking slide. So I do apologize if you've not had an opportunity to have lunch yet. If we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I'll just start with a brief introduction to Tyson Foods. Of course, we're very well known for our chicken business, but Tyson Foods is actually a multinational protein-focused food company that produces approximately 20% of the beef, pork, and chicken here in the United States. And of course, we have a portfolio of foods under a host of brands that you are likely familiar with, including Tyson, Jimmy Dean, Hillshire Farm, Ballpark, and State Fair brands. We're the leading protein provider to many national restaurant chains, including quick service, casual, mid-scale, fine dining restaurants. And we are also the only company that sells chicken, beef, pork, and prepared foods products through all major retail distribution channels. So your club stores, your grocery stores, and your discount stores. And of course, we have an international business that is structured into 3 regions with in-country production and organizations in China, Korea, Asia Pacific, and Europe. So that's a little bit about Tyson Foods. You can see some of our capacity and what we're looking at on a weekly basis. This is fiscal 19, but it gives you an idea of our scale and our reach. If we can go to the next slide. So land stewardship. Why did Tyson Foods set a land stewardship goal? What is Tyson hoping to achieve? So Tyson Foods is the largest purchaser of feed corn in the industry. And this corn is used to feed the poultry, as well as the cattle and the hogs that are raised by independent farmers and ranchers. And while there have been many advances in feed conversion and farming practices, growing grain remains a intensive activity, and there's a lot more work to be done. And so since grain production is part of our supply chain and is a contributor to our overall carbon footprint, we wanted to take steps to lessen its environmental impact. So our goal is to support improved environmental practices on 2 million acres of row crop corn by the end of 2020. And really what we're hoping to achieve is to provide farmers with tools that help inform them how they can improve their economic and environmental bottom line, as well as lower the GHG emissions generated in our supply chain. And if we can go to the next slide. So we launched 2 pilot projects in fiscal year 19 to help move us closer to achieving this goal. The first pilot equipped a network agronomist with My Farms, which is really a farm management software program that provides farmers with insights about the value of conservation practices. So using the My Farms platform, farmers can anonymously learn from one another about opportunities to improve yield and economic performance through the adoption of conservation practices such as planting cover crops or improving soil and manure management. Now, admittedly, 2019 was a difficult planting season, able to enroll 11,000 acres into this particular pilot program. So we did fall short of our target, but we have 2 remaining years in our agreement with My Farms, and we're going to use that time to continue to enroll acres and evaluate how this approach can provide value to farmers. Now, the second pilot was in partnership with Farmers Business Network, or FBN. And this is an organization that offers technical and agronomic assistance across a network of 10,000 farmers who span across nearly 35 million acres. So it's a large network, and it really enables FBN to recruit from their vast farmer membership. And we were actually able to enroll 408,000 acres of farmland into this pilot. So this pilot, we've actually been able to collect some baseline data that's allowed us to identify both conservation practices and areas for improvement. So for example, many of the farmers are making use of effective practices. So this is what we've been able to discover. They're using reduced till agriculture. They're implementing cover crops. They're using nitrogen inhibitors. And so the effective practice relative to land stewardship. But at the same time, the data showed us that the volume of nitrogen fertilizer being used on corn by FBN members is higher than the national average. So that shows us there's an opportunity for optimizing farming practices. So this is the data that we're looking at, and this is what we want to use, again, to help influence land stewardship practices across the farmers in these networks. If we can go to the next slide. And so a question we're often asked is how are we doing this? How are we working through this? Who's our partner? And EDF, Environmental Defense Fund, is our partner in these pilots. And I would just, I'd say it's simple to when you think about why are you working with EDF? What's the value? It's really about the transparency and the accountability that partnering with EDF brings to these pilots. We needed a partner that would help us ensure we were transparent in what we're doing, that would help us build that stakeholder trust. We wanted a partner that could bring science and validation and credibility to our efforts. And we wanted a partner where we both understood that it was okay if we didn't agree on everything, but that we were both committed to working on the things that we do agree on, because we know collectively we can make a lot of progress together. And so EDF is that partner for us. And the value really of receiving the Innovative Partnership Certificate is really is really demonstrated in this partnership with EDF. It's that credibility, that transparency, and that trust and building with stakeholders. So that is an overview of our land stewardship commitment and our partnership with Environmental Defense Fund. I'll turn it back to Jessica.
Thanks, Leanne. Just one quick question that I think you kind of touched a bit on, and I know you work a lot on sustainability efforts for Tyson outside of this program. So from a corporate perspective, you know, if I was a company listening in today, obviously a lot of this is, you know, to somebody, you know, extra work, but, you know, what is the value of doing that extra work, of finding that partner, of building that transparency? So if I was a company that's looking to do a project like yours, where is the best starting point? Is it coming together and scoping out a specific project and then looking out for the best partner? Or is it finding maybe a partner first and then brainstorming, say, which aspects of sustainability should we, you know, be addressing, because we want to achieve these goals of you know, transparency and credibility with, you know, reducing our GHG emissions. So basically, the question is, if I was a company wanting to partner, where's the best place to start? Do you have some advice for that?
You know, actually, I think what really worked well for Tyson is, for lack of a better way of saying it, opening those doors and having those conversations with organizations like EDF, who are not completely intimate and familiar with all of our business, because it really helped, having those conversations in a transparent style really helped inform our thinking. So we didn't necessarily go to the table with a project in mind, if you will. We knew what we wanted to focus on and what we wanted to work towards. And that really gave us the opportunity to explore those partnerships, again, to find someone that had common interest, that they could also challenge and help inform our thinking, so that we could deliver on the results at a broader scale.
That's, I think, really great advice. Yeah, and for everybody else tuning in, I've managed the innovative partnership category for the past several years, and I've certainly seen that as a theme. And you know, companies who are going beyond the scope of just, you know, what is in their regular line of business, you know, exceeding just, you know, like the minimum goals. I think that's something that really highlights a great application. So thank you for sharing that. So I just wanted to flag that we are opening up for questions right now. So please send us your questions. We do have one right now, which is, what is the difference between organizational leadership and the goal setting certificate? So I would say that while the goal setting certificate recognizes organizations that have publicly set, verified, aggressive greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, the Organizational Leadership Award is recognizing organizations that have already demonstrated leadership by developing that comprehensive GHG inventory, a history of aggressive emissions reduction, internal alignment with their climate goals, and also engaging their stakeholders throughout the supply chain. So it's a very holistic kind of a recognition. So we have a question for you, Leanne, that has just come in. What has the value of winning the Climate Leadership Award been? And you touched on this a little bit. What has it brought to your organization and also your broader environmental stewardship efforts?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Really, I think the value is the awareness that the award creates for what Tyson Foods is doing, for the partnerships that we're establishing, but also the awareness that there are opportunities, bigger challenges that we all need to work on collectively. And so again, it's really been a great opportunity to have the partnership with Environmental Defense Fund recognized, to have our work noted, to experience the first couple of years of the pilot. And so we're really looking forward to continued progress.
That's great. So we are still waiting for your questions, so we're here to answer them. Maybe Alex, if you can maybe talk a little bit about your past experience with the awards program. You know, we're coming up with our 10th anniversary, which is very exciting, and I know you've been sort of here since the beginning. So are there any sort of reflections that you can talk about in terms of, you know, when you first got involved with the CLA to where we are today that you might be able to touch on?
I mean, I think as we've talked a little bit about, Jessica, I think there's an acknowledgement that when we started this program, where we started 10 years ago is different to where we are today. And so, you know, we've certainly recognized some of the best and the best of the best in the U.S. And we're recognizing that what it means to be the best in terms of climate leadership has shifted as well. And as we look towards the next decade, you know, where I think we all acknowledge that more needs to be done, where there does need to be more climate ambition, I think we are now moving the awards to support that need for increased ambition as well. So I think some of the things you've talked about in terms of shifting some of the criteria, you know, opening up the Organizational Leadership Award to, you know, to include 2 different kinds of organizations, different sizes and scopes. I think that's an important evolution. And, you know, we're just looking forward to recognizing the next generation of climate leaders in this country.
That's great. Thank you. We have one more question here that's specific to the application. So can an individual self-nominate? And they can self-nominate, but we do require some letters of support. So make sure you provide those. And we have another question here. So there is in the application at least 3 significant GHG mitigation activities should be described. And the question only provides 3 prompts for mitigation activities. Can an applicant add a mitigation strategy number 4 and further strategies to this question? And I would say yes, that you can add those additional strategies, but you know, you don't need to, you know, list a whole slew of them. So for example, you don't need to list 10, but if you want to list more than 3, you can feel free to do so. Let's see, we're having a lot of questions come in right now. So if an applicant procures renewable electricity with multiple different certifications and standards, so for example, Green E in some markets and REX in others, should they list them in all the same field, or is it possible to add rows to answer this question? You can feel free to list all of the different certifications that you're procuring from. So we had discussed the alignment with science-based targets in order to apply. Does it require an official application or verification to the SBTI organization to qualify? Do all the award applications in the categories have an SBTI minimum requirement for the organization? So no, you don't have to necessarily be aligned with SBTI formally, but we are following their standards. And no, not all award applications have the SBTI minimum. It's just for the GHG achievement one. So a question here about who reviews the applications. So I'll talk a little bit about the process. And then Alice, you can feel free to add on as well. So when applications come into our platform, we collect all of them, and then we have screening committees for each of them. So these screening committees are made up of basically sustainability professionals from different parts of the field. Some of them are from private organizations, some of them are from NGOs. And these committees basically review the applications, and then they make a recommendation for whether or not the applicant would qualify for getting the award. And then ultimately the steering committee from the Climate Registry as well as C2ES makes a recommendation for whether or not they receive the award. But largely a lot of the decision making is screened through those committees of the different award categories. Is there an application fee? No, there is not an application fee. So you can apply for as many categories as you want. And I mentioned this earlier. So if an applicant wants to apply for an award in a different category, you can, or more than one category, you can. However, if your organization has won in a previous year for the award category, they would have to wait a couple of years. So for example, if they won in 2019, they cannot apply for the same category until 2022. Let's see. Can we apply if we are a local chapter of a global initiative? Yes. I mean, it's going to be probably dependent on the award category you're applying for, but in general, the answer is yes, you can apply as a local chapter. Okay, Leanne, I have another question for you about Tyson. How did Tyson decide to go with a partnership to help reduce their carbon footprint? Were you ever interested in other sorts of opportunities?
It's really, again, a great question. I think the thing for Tyson, again, as I was saying, the partnerships that we're forming with Environmental Defense Fund, other partnerships that we have, for example, we're working with World Resources Institute on contextual-based water targets. Those partnerships, those collaborations have really helped sharpen and fine-tune our thinking about some of the challenges that we have and opportunities that we have in our operations, in the communities where we have operations, and within our supply chain. And so really having that partnership has really offered the credibility, the validation, the science that we may not be as attuned to, you would find in organizations such as EDF or WRI.
And another question for you here, Leanne. Does Tyson Foods measure the impact of the Land Conservation Partnership Program on its corporate GHG emissions reduction goal?
Not at this time, we have not. We're still collecting baseline data, and as we move through that baseline data, that will start to inform some of the emissions reporting.
There's a question here about so if an applicant's GHG reduction goal includes both absolute emissions reductions, so for example, 50% of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions from 2015 to 2030, and carbon offsets or removal credits, say net zero by 2030, how should they frame this question? Or how should they frame this in one of our questions where we don't necessarily offer a template to reference those offsets or removal credits? So the answer to that is the applicant should mention how much of their goal will be achieved through those offsets or removal credits, given that the target has to be compatible with climate science and align with at least a 2-degree scenario. And we're going to take probably just a few more questions and then conclude the webinar. So get yours in now. There's a question here about whether there's requirements or recommendations around the types of third-party references. So we would say that you should select a recommender that knows the organization well and has worked with your sustainability team or whoever it is on that project closely so that they can attest to the process. So for example, using the Tyson's example, so the process of saying, hey, we want to be partnering up with an organization because of X, Y, Z. These are our intention. These are our goals overall. And then if that third-party reference can speak to your ambition as well as your credibility and also the action that you've taken, because a lot of the times we're evaluating demonstration of the actions that you say you're going to take and then also those achievements. So if there's a third party that can speak to those parts of the processes and has seen you participate in those actions directly, those are the types of organizations that we're looking for to substantiate your application. And also some of the questions that I'm seeing here, they are very probably going to be specific. The answer is probably going to be very specific to your organization. So please, again, actually, if Stephanie, you can go back to the award information slide. It's questions@climateleadershipawards.org that you can shoot us a question to. And if some of you, we've started to get some of these questions, are thinking you might apply for 2 categories that you might qualify for, so say the goal setting certificate or the organizational leadership, we're happy to also, get on a call with you and you can explain, your sort of sustainability efforts and, your achievements, and we can best advise what category you might apply for. It might be one or it might be both. So in certain cases, we're happy to help brainstorm with you what the best category is for you to apply to. So if an organization has already set a science-based targets initiative goal with the 2-degree scenario, but recently updated the target to align with the 1.5-degree scenario, are you eligible for a goal setting award? The answer is yes, you can apply with the new target as long as it is aligned with the rest of the requirements for goal setting. So take a look at those in detail. And with that, I think we're going to close out the webinar. So a reminder for everybody, we did record this webinar. I think it'll take about 24 hours for us to process it and get it online. You can go back to some of the things that we reviewed in detail, as well as Leanne's program details. And so follow us on Twitter. We will be giving you a lot of updates there. You have 2 months to apply, so that's plenty of time to take a deeper look at the application, get your questions to us. We really want to help your organization succeed and help you get recognized. And so with that, I'd like to thank my cohort here, Alex, and also Leanne for joining us today. Hopefully by now you've got some food inside you if you had your appetite whet by Leanne's presentation. And we really look forward to recognizing all of you in our Climate Leadership Awards program for 2021. So with that, we'll talk to you soon and hope you all have a safe and good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.